My daughter, please. I'm thirsty. Can I have some water? Lena didn't hesitate. She reached into her cooler and took out one bottle of water, handed the water to the man, and smiled. Here, Papa, drink. Slowly. It's cold. The man took it with both hands like it was gold. He drank. The water dribbled slightly down his chin as he gulped down more than half in seconds. Join me as we dive into this powerful story. The sun showed no mercy that Thursday afternoon. It hovered directly above Manila like a punishing god. But Lena was sitting at the corner of Mabini and Guerrero Street, sitting on an old plastic stool under the skeletal shadow of a worn-out umbrella that had lost its purpose years ago. She had been there for over 2 hours. The large cooler beside her, once filled to the brim with neatly packed bottles of cold water, not a single customer had bought from her today. Still, Lena smiled. She adjusted the edge of her scarf, wiped the sweat running down her neck, and hummed a tune her grandmother used to sing when she was younger. It was her way of surviving the silence, the loneliness of sitting under the sun, with nothing but passing glances and pitying looks. Suddenly, a voice broke her thoughts, a weak, trembling voice. My daughter, please, I'm thirsty. Can I have some water? Lena looked up quickly. The man standing in front of her looked like he had walked through 5 deserts. His shirt, torn at the sleeves, hung loosely over his bony frame. Dust caked his skin and hair, and his sandals were nearly falling apart. His hands trembled slightly as he held out a hand, not with force, but with the gentleness of someone who had stopped hoping long ago. She didn't hesitate. She reached into her cooler and brought out one bottle of water. It was meant to be sold, of course. That was her business, her livelihood, but none of that mattered at that moment. She handed the water to the man and smiled. Here, Papa, drink. Slowly. It's cold. The man took it with both hands like it was gold. He drank. The water dribbled slightly down his chin as he gulped down more than half in seconds. Then he paused, breathing heavily, and looked at her. God bless you, my daughter. May you never lack. Amen. Lena replied with a soft smile. He sat beside her, his back bent inside. You've been sitting here for a long time. Lena chuckled. Yes, almost 3 hours now, and no one has bought. She shook her head. Not today, but maybe soon. The old man turned his head and studied her. She looked no older than 23. Her clothes were simple, clean, but old. A long yellow skirt and a faded pink top. Her scarf barely covered her tightly braided hair, and her hands looked like they had seen years of hard work. But her smile was gentle and filled with strength. What's your name, my child? Lena, he nodded. That's a beautiful name. I'm Dante. Nice to meet you, Papa Dante. There was a moment of silence between them as the wind briefly blew through the trees nearby. A little relief from the heat. You live around here? He asked. Yes, she answered. I live in Tonda. It's about 25 minutes away. I come here every morning with my cooler. That's not easy, he said. Lena gave a dry laugh. Nothing about my life has been easy, Papa. And then, almost like something in her needed to be heard, she spoke. I never met my parents, not even once. I grew up with my grandmother in a small village. She looked down at her hands. She died 5 years ago. After that, I tried to keep going, but life got even harder. So I came to the city hoping to find work. I only finished high school so no one wanted to hire me for anything serious. I applied everywhere: papa banks, shops, hotels, even tried to be a waitress. Nothing. Dante listened quietly, the bottle of water now half empty in his hand. I was stranded. I begged for a while. Then one woman gave me this cooler. I gathered the little money I had left, bought bottled water, and started selling on the street. That's what has been keeping me going ever since. And it's been enough to survive, he asked gently. Lena smiled faintly for now. Yes. Dante was quiet for a while. Then he said, "You smiled when I asked for water." She looked at him confused. "You hadn't sold anything all day. You could have said no, but you didn't. And yet you smiled. Why?" Lena tilted her head. "Because it cost me nothing to smile. And because you needed the water more than I needed the money at that moment. If I were in your shoes, I'd want someone to show me kindness." Dante nodded again, his eyes glistening for a moment. Just then, a car slowed down beside them. A young woman rolled down the window. "Hello, give me 3 bottles of water." Lena's eyes lit up. She quickly packed 3 cold bottles into a black nylon bag and handed it to the woman who paid. And drove off. When she turned, Dante was watching her again. "See, God provides," Lena said cheerfully. "You really believe that?" "With all my heart." Dante stood slowly, leaning slightly on a walking stick Lena hadn't noticed before. "I'll be going now, Lena. But I'll see you again." "You will?" He smiled. "Yes." She waved as he walked away. Lena had no idea that Dante had been watching her for over a week. Each day from across the street behind tinted car windows, he had seen her set up her stool, wipe down her cooler, and flash the same hopeful smile to every passer-by. He had seen her go home some days with nothing. He had watched how she helped an old woman pick up her fallen groceries. How she once gave a little girl a bottle of water for free when the child had no money and was coughing from heat. Dante was not a beggar. He was one of the wealthiest men in Manila, owner of real estate, shares in shipping companies, and hotels across the country. But what he lacked was peace of mind, especially concerning his only son. Marco had grown up with everything money could buy. Women chased him for his money. Friends surrounded him for favors. Every relationship ended in betrayal or drama. Dante had begged him to settle down, but Marco had refused. "I don't trust any woman, Dad. They all want something." So Dante, in his wisdom, decided to find a woman who wanted nothing, but still gave everything. And he had found her. Lena, the water seller with nothing but a smile and a kind heart. One Thursday afternoon, Marco pushed open the heavy oak door of his father's office with his usual swag. His tailored navy blue suit clung perfectly to his broad frame, and the smell of expensive cologne trailed behind him as he stepped inside. His face was lit with excitement. "Pops," he called with a wide smile, holding up a file in his left hand. "Guess who just closed a multi-million-dollar shipping contract?" Mr. Dante looked up from behind his large mahogany desk. His glasses rested on the bridge of his nose, and he had a pen poised above a sheet of paper. He didn't smile. Not even a twitch. Marco's grin faltered a little. "Seriously, that's all I get? No congratulations, son? No proud dad moment?" Mr. Dante placed the pen down slowly and leaned back in his chair, studying his son for a moment. I'm proud of you, Marco. I always am. But can we talk? Marco's brow furrowed slightly. Okay. He sat on a leather chair opposite his father and crossed one leg over the other. What's wrong, Dad? There was a long pause. You're 32, Mr. Dante said finally. And not a single relationship of yours has lasted more than 3 months. Marco sighed, his smile gone completely. Dad, please don't start. You need to settle down, Marco. Please, I want to see you happy again. All you do is work, work, work. I want to see you with a woman who brings peace to your life. Marco leaned forward, annoyed. I'm not interested in marriage. Why? Mr. Dante's voice was low but steady. Not all women are like your mother. Marco stood up abruptly. I disagree, Dad. They are all the same. She left when I was 12. Marco snapped, pacing the room now. She didn't even say goodbye, just packed her bags and walked out. She didn't call. She didn't even care that I was just a boy. Mr. Dante looked down sadly. Marco continued, his voice breaking. Dad, you keep saying not all women are like her. But I've met too many that are gold diggers, manipulators, users. I've seen it all. Dad. They say all the right things until they get what they want, then they leave. I know you're hurt, Mr. Dante said gently. Hurt? Marco scoffed. You think I'm still hurt after 20 years? No. Dad. I just learned the truth. They're all the same. Mr. Dante stood up, walking close to him. You're wrong, son. Very wrong. There are still good women out there. Women who give without expecting anything in return. Women who would stay through storms, even if they had the chance to run. Marco grabbed his file and walked toward the door. I've heard enough. Let's stick to business, Dad. Leave my personal life alone. And with that, he walked out, slamming the door behind him. That night, Mr. Dante sat on the edge of his bed in silence. His thoughts drifted to Lena. Her smile, her story, her kindness. She had so little, yet she gave so much. She was exactly the kind of woman Marco needed. But how was he going to make his stubborn son see that? A plan began to form in his mind. It had been 5 days since he last saw her. And so the next morning he dug out the old clothes, the torn sandals, and the walking stick. He wore the same dirty shirt and powdered his face to appear dusty and worn. The billionaire became the beggar once again. He took a private cab, asked the driver to drop him 2 streets away, and walked slowly down to Mabini Street. And there she was, Lena, sitting on her plastic stool beside her cooler, her face glowing despite the heat. Her scarf had shifted, letting her edges peek out, but she didn't care. She had just finished talking to a customer and had handed them their change with a soft, "Thank you for buying. God bless you." Mr. Dante smiled to himself. Nothing had changed. She noticed him instantly. "Ah, Papa Dante," she beamed. "You're back." He smiled warmly. "Yes, my daughter. I had to come and see you." "Sit," she offered, patting the stool beside her. He sat carefully. "You're still here?" "Same spot." "Where else would I be?" she laughed. "This is my little office." They both chuckled. After a moment of silence, Dante cleared his throat. I heard something. And I thought of you immediately. What did you hear? She asked. Curiously. I heard there's a rich man looking for a housekeeper. His staff said he wants someone decent, honest, and hard-working. I thought of you right away. Lena blinked. Me? Yes, you. She looked down at her hands. Papa, people like me don't get those kinds of jobs. I don't even have a university certificate. You don't need one. It's housekeeping, cleaning, organizing, helping around the house. What you need is a good heart, and you have that plenty. She looked skeptical. Mr. Dante leaned in. Just go to this address tomorrow morning. Tell them an agency sent you. They won't question it. Lena frowned slightly. Which agency? Just sayin'. Agency sent you. The guards will let you in. She bit her lower lip. It's better than sitting in the sunroof. You'll have a proper roof, meals, rest days, and good pay. She looked at her cooler, still mostly full. I don't know, Papa. He touched her shoulder gently. Just go. You have nothing to lose. Lena nodded. Slowly. Okay, I'll try. He smiled and stood. Good. Go early. They like punctual people. The next morning, Lena stood outside the grand black gate of a house she had only seen in movies. The compound walls were so tall she couldn't see past them. There were security cameras tucked into every corner. Her heart pounded. She wore her best clothes, a clean blue top and the same yellow skirt from the week before. Her hair was neatly plaited back. Her slippers were worn, but clean. She walked to the gate and pressed the buzzer. A voice crackled through the intercom. Yes, she swallowed hard. Good morning. I'm here for the housekeeping job. The agency sent me. There was a long pause. Then a click. The gate slowly opened. Lena stepped in. Her mouth falling open as she looked around. The compound was huge. A green Range Rover was parked neatly beside a water fountain. A man in a white shirt walked up to her. You're the one from the agency? Yes, yours sir. He nodded. Follow me. Lena followed him, heart racing. This was nothing like her usual day. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. The man in the white shirt was Marco's personal driver. He walked Lena into the house and showed her around. She was stunned by the beauty of everything. When she stepped into her room downstairs, her smile grew wider. She stared around the space in awe, then sat on the bed and gasped softly. This is the softest bed I've ever sat on. She whispered to herself with joy. Without wasting time, she changed into her uniform and headed straight to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Marco was upstairs getting dressed, preparing to leave for the airport. Lena began cleaning the kitchen, humming softly as she worked. About 5 minutes later, Marco walked down the stairs but stopped mid-step when he heard a voice coming from the kitchen. Curious, he walked in. Who are you? He asked sharply. Lena turned startled but composed. Good morning, sir. I'm the new housekeeper. From the agency. Right? Marco asked. Yes, sir, she replied quickly. Days ago, Marco had requested for a housekeeper from an agency, but was surprised she came so soon, but he nodded, adjusting his wristwatch. I'm leaving for the airport. I'll be back tomorrow. Lena smiled. Okay, sir. Safe trip. Marco walked out the door, entered his car, and was driven off by his driver. Lena returned to cleaning, humming quietly to herself. The next day, Marco returned home. As he walked through the door, he noticed the house looked neater than usual. Spotless, organized, he was impressed. Lena was standing by the door with a welcoming smile. "Good morning, sir. Welcome back." He nodded. "What's your name again?" "Lena, sir." "Yeah, Lena. Please make me toast. Bread, scrambled eggs, and hot tea." "Yes, sir," she replied. And walked quickly to the kitchen. Moments later, Marco came downstairs to his breakfast and Lena served him neatly. After eating, he left for the office. That routine continued. 4 weeks. One evening, Lena sat quietly on her bed, lost in deep thought. Her past life floated back to her memory, her struggle, her loneliness. And Papa Dante. Tears fell freely from her eyes as she remembered how she never got the chance to truly thank him. Unknown to her, Marco was home that evening. He had been calling her and getting no response. He walked toward her room. He paused at the door and found it slightly open. There he saw her sitting, crying, lost in emotion. He knocked gently. She looked up, shocked. She quickly wiped her tears and stood. "Good evening, sir," she greeted, forcing a smile. "I bought you this," he said, stretching a small box toward her. She looked at it in surprise. Inside was a brand new phone. Not just any phone, an iPhone 15. "The other day," he explained, "I was looking for an important file I left at home. I wanted to call you to check for it, but I couldn't because you didn't have a phone. So, I got you one." Lena's face brightened. She'd never held a phone that expensive in her life. She smiled so wide it softened Marco's heart even more. Later that evening, after dinner, Marco sat beside her and taught her how to use it. Their laughter filled the living room like old friends rediscovering joy. Days later, Lena was doing the dishes when Rico, Marco's driver, walked into the kitchen. "Have you seen Mr. Marco?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "No, sir." Rico checked his wristwatch. "It's past 10 a.m. Mr. Marco usually leaves for the office by 7:30. I hope he's okay." Lena grew concerned. "Please go and check on him." Lena didn't wait. She walked swiftly to his room and knocked. No response. She pushed the door open and gasped. Marco lay on his bed, shivering under his duvet. She ran to him and placed her hand on his forehead. "Oh my God, you burning," she exclaimed. She rushed downstairs and told Rico to hurry to the pharmacy and get medication. While Rico was away, Lena fetched a bowl of water and a towel, returned to Marco's room, and began cooling his fever. She wiped his forehead again and again, whispering praying under her breath. When Rico returned, she helped Marco take the medicine and stayed beside him the entire day. That evening, Marco opened his eyes weakly and saw Lena asleep in a chair by his bedside, her head resting on the edge of the bed. He smiled gently. Quietly, he stood up and covered her with a blanket. The next morning, Lena woke up and saw the blanket on her. She turned and found Marco still asleep. A soft smile touched her lips. She touched his forehead. It was cooler now, and quietly left the room. Unknown to her, Marco was awake. He opened his eyes after she left and smiled. Later that day, he called his doctor. When the doctor arrived and checked him, he shook his head. "Marco, I know you're a workaholic, but you really need to rest. Your body can't keep up with your pace." Marco nodded. "Okay, doctor. I'll take a break." Lena stood nearby and added, "Please listen to the doctor, sir." Marco smiled faintly and nodded. Later that evening, Lena walked into his room, but paused when she saw him working on his laptop. "Sir," she said, walking closer. "The doctor told you to rest." Before he could defend himself, she closed the laptop and picked it up. Marco blinked in surprise, but said nothing. Something about her boldness amused him. "What would you like for dinner?" she asked with a stern look. "Porridge, yam, and fried fish," he replied with a smile. She nodded and walked out with his laptop. Marco smiled again, watching her. The next day, Marco walked down the stairs and into the kitchen, standing right behind her. "Lena," she turned quickly, almost dropping a plate. "Ah, sir, you scared me." "Sorry," he laughed. "I got bored. Since you seized my laptop, I couldn't work." She chuckled. "Sir, the doctor said you need rest." "I'm resting now, aren't I?" "You weren't resting yesterday when I caught you working," she pointed out, crossing her arms. He raised his hands in surrender. "Fine, fine. I give up." Then he asked, "So, what do you do for fun?" She thought for a moment. "I watch movies." "Great. Then let's watch one together." They walked to the living room. Lena picked a movie. As the movie played, Marco stole glances at her. By the end of the movie, Lena had tears running down her cheeks. The main character had lost her parents at a young age. Lena related deeply to it. Marco saw her crying and moved closer. "Hey, it's okay." She tried to smile but couldn't stop crying. "Do you want to talk about it?" "You might feel better," he said softly. Lena nodded and told him her story, her grandmother, her struggles, her loneliness. Marco listened silently, moved deeply by her story. He gently pulled her into a hug and held her while she cried. Eventually, she fell asleep in his arms. He carried her carefully to her room, laid her on her bed, and covered her with a duvet. Then he walked to his own room and sat down, lost in thought. Something had shifted inside him that night. He couldn't understand it fully, but he knew one thing for sure. Whenever he was with Lena, he felt at peace. Marco resumed work that Monday morning, feeling lighter than he had been in years. His steps were unhurried, his face calm, his heart strangely full, but nothing could have prepared him for the surprise waiting in his office. "Dad," Marco blinked as he opened the door to find Mr. Dante sitting casually on the guest couch, flipping through a magazine. "What are you doing here?" Dante looked up with a smile. "I came to see my son. Since you've refused to let me visit or even know where you live." Marco sighed and shut the door. "But Dad, we had a conversation about that. You promised to let me be." They both laughed. But even in that moment of humor, Mr. Dante noticed something different. His son looked happier. There was a softness to his face he hadn't seen in years. Then, out of nowhere, Marco asked, "Dad, how do you know when you're in love with someone?" Dante raised a brow and leaned forward. "That's a strange question for a man who